In the early 16th century, King Henry VIII was the most powerful man in England. But behind this display of supreme authority, the king was operating in a state of desperation. His wife, Queen Catherine of Aragon, had suffered through multiple pregnancies, but she had been unable to provide Henry with a living male heir. Without a son to inherit the throne, the future of the Tudor line was a void. If Henry died without a successor, the country risked falling back into the chaos of civil war. Anne Boleyn entered this precarious environment after years in the courts of Europe. She returned to England with an education in music and fashion, but also with a sharp, tactical mind that was rare at court. Henry's massive dynastic vulnerability created an opening. It was the perfect environment for an ambitious outsider to attempt a rise to power that was previously impossible. The standard protocol for a king's interest was predictable. Noblewomen were expected to become royal mistresses, disposable roles that offered no long-term political security. But Anne Boleyn flatly refused to play that role. She denied the king access, holding her ground until he agreed to something far more dangerous, a legitimate marriage. This demand was legally and politically impossible. Henry was still married to Catherine, and the Pope, caught in a web of European alliances, refused to grant the annulment the king required. We can see the resulting gridlock here. Henry's demand for a son was absolute. Anne's condition for that son was the crown. The church stood directly in the middle, creating a total bottleneck in the system. By maintaining this boundary, Anne took a personal romantic interaction and forced it to become a high-stakes standoff between the King of England and the Roman Catholic Church. Henry's solution to the bottleneck was radical. If the existing laws prevented him from getting what he wanted, he would simply remove the lawmaker. The result was the English Reformation. Henry severed ties with Rome, declared himself the head of the church in England, and granted himself the divorce. In 1533, Anne reached the peak of her power. She was crowned Queen of England, possessing the maximum influence and access she had spent years securing. But her success was built on a hidden trap. The massive political capital she now wielded was effectively a lease, and the payment was due immediately. This ledger shows the reality of her position. On the left is the power she acquired, a crown and a new national religion. On the right is the single condition required to maintain it. She had to produce a healthy male heir. She managed the greatest rise to power in the history of the court, but was now left unprotected against the chance of biology. Soon after her marriage, Anne gave birth to a daughter, Elizabeth. Her birth meant the specific result Henry gambled his kingdom on, a male heir, had not materialized. As Anne suffered miscarriages, her leverage plummeted. The king's patience vanished. The traits that helped her rise, her outspoken nature and visible ambition, now left her exposed. Without the protection of a son, she was a vulnerable target for her enemies at court. Those rivals weaponized the shift in Henry's favor, leveling highly doubtful charges of adultery, betrayal, and incest against the queen. The speed of Tudor justice was terrifying. In a matter of days, she was taken from the throne to a cell in the Tower of London. The same system of ruthless, transactional power she used to dismantle the church was now being used to dismantle her. In May 1536, Anne Boleyn was led to her execution. Henry provided a rare form of mercy, hiring a skilled French swordsman rather than a traditional executioner to carry out the sentence. She remained composed on the scaffold, choosing not to accuse the king or beg for mercy. It was a final, calculated effort to protect her remaining family from the king's wrath. But the daughter whose birth had signaled the beginning of Anne's fall would eventually provide the ultimate irony. Elizabeth, the first, would rule for 45 years, bringing the stability and strength to the Tudor dynasty that Henry had broken the church to find. Anne Boleyn was a woman who navigated a rigged system to reach the crown. Her actions led to the break from Rome and the rise of a legendary daughter, even as she paid the ultimate price for the climb.